Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today's virtual meetup. On today's agenda, we will discuss the new coronavirus business continuity solution. As a reminder, we'll be recording this meetup and we'll be posting the recording to YouTube. In a second, I'll share the YouTube playlist link in the chat window. You will find the meetup recording in that playlist once it's posted. We'll also post the recording information to our meetup groups. So later in the meetup, we'll have a section for Q&A. So as we move through the meetup, if you'd like to submit questions, you can use the Q&A option at the bottom of your Zoom window. And with that being said, I'll go ahead and pass it over to Scott to get us started.
Thank you, Matt. And thank you all for joining us today. My name is Scott Oppman, and I lead the ArcGIS Solutions Division here at Esri. And today we're excited to share with you some work we've been doing around coronavirus business continuity. Before I jump in, I just want to talk a little bit about the ArcGIS Solutions Group and what our mission is really inside of Esri. So our team is a part of the development team at Esri, and our mission is really to close the gap between what our core software provides and what you do in your organizations every day, and really help you maximize the investment you're making in ArcGIS and location-based data and technology. So the ArcGIS solutions provide a whole set of useful maps and apps that are organized around the work you do. They're included with your software, so everything we're going to show you today comes with your ArcGIS subscription. And they can be configured and extended to meet specific needs in your organization. So one aspect of the work we do is the technology we're developing to really help you maximize that investment. But the other aspect of that work is really building a community of users that drive what are included in our solution offerings, allow you to connect and share best practices, and ultimately guide the work we're doing here at Esri. And that's really important to us in a time like this, especially because we know people are really working hard to develop new best practices and new patterns for technology use in this pandemic. And while we're a development team that's really focused on enabling the success of our ArcGIS users, we know there may be times when you need additional capacity or expertise. So we also work very closely with our friends in professional services and our partners to make sure that you have a whole set of offerings that are available to help you implement, extend, and even enhance the solutions that we're going to show you today. So today we're here to really focus on the COVID-19 business continuity solution. And obviously the COVID-19 pandemic is having a massive impact on the health of our communities, and it's presenting a great deal of business challenges for us as government agencies, as private businesses, and ultimately utilities as well too. And we've seen the impact on our business and operations at a whole host of levels. We have local orders that are controlling where, how, and where people can visit public places and what procedures you have to go through to allow people into those public places. We have states and counties that are issuing stay-at-home orders and essentially requiring businesses and government agencies to instantly be a mobile workforce. And we've seen guidance from the CDC and even OSHA that really is promoting best practices around pandemic planning and mitigation efforts to ultimately help you ensure that your employees and your workforce are effectively being managed and the status of your facilities is being maintained. So what we found as we started looking at the needs of government agencies, private businesses, and utilities, and specifically around business continuity, is that there was a couple key questions that many organizations were asking themselves. The first thing they wanted to know when many of these stay-at-home orders were issued is where are our employees working and are they safe? And ultimately, what's the impact on the facilities that I have spread out throughout my community or throughout my area of influence, and which facilities are impacted or closed because of these orders that are happening at the state and local level? Are you able then to communicate the status of those facilities and your employees to human resource leadership and even senior leadership? And how do I, as a manager of my team, now understand what the capacity of my workforce is and the services that we deliver? And then ultimately, we've seen many examples of organizations, whether they be private businesses or government agencies and utilities, that want to communicate the status of their employees and facilities with other internal decision makers so they can begin to address certain facility closures, or even new work assignments to address key operational needs and really provide support for essential workers. And then finally, the last thing that we know many people are doing is ultimately sharing this information with their key stakeholders. If you're a private business, that could be the status of the stores that you operate or the facilities you maintain, and whether or not they are open for business or even available to workers to come in and do business there. If you're a government agency, you may be working completely in a remote environment and only allowing online transactions to services during this time. So we wanted to develop a solution that ultimately allowed you to address three key things. The first thing is, how do you understand the operational capacity of your workforce? Where are people working? What is the status of their health? And ultimately, do they need any assistance from your organization? The second thing we wanted to help you do is manage and monitor the status of the facilities across your footprint. And then finally, be able to effectively communicate that information, any disruptions you may have, to customers and residents in your community. And the interesting thing about this solution is, as we began to talk to private business, utilities, and governments, we all found that they needed very similar capabilities to address their kind of business continuity needs. So the business continuity solution essentially includes a whole series of focused info products that are designed around those key workflows. And you can deploy this solution to your ArcGIS Online organization. And when you do, you'll see you get a series of surveys or configurations of Survey 1, 2, 3 for ArcGIS that are designed for employees, contractors, and team leads. Think of that as your personnel in your organization. Those surveys are designed to help you do regular check-ins. And as I said, kind of understand where your workforce is located and ultimately what their health status is. That information then flows up for executives in your human resources department, or perhaps incident commanders in your organization that want to see an overall look at your workforce capacity and where you may be impacted on certain teams. As we begin to then transition into the facility aspect of it, you'll see that there's a set of applications that are designed for facility managers who are responsible for doing either daily or weekly check-ins on the facilities you manage. And that information, much like the personnel status dashboard, bubbles up into a facility status dashboard that shows you the overall capacity of all of your facilities across your footprint. And then finally, the last piece of this is a configuration of ArcGIS Hub that provides a real focused experience for internal and external stakeholders. It allows you to provide very focused information to your external stakeholders if you want to show maybe facilities that are no longer open or perhaps impacted, have impacted business hours, you can do that. And an internal portal where you can provide a destination for those team check-ins or maybe individual check-ins, as I mentioned earlier, and other information that you want to communicate to staff in your organization. Now, one of the great things about this solution is, to get started, it really only requires a couple key pieces of information. The first thing is an inventory of your personnel, and Chris will talk more about this later. And the second thing is just a location of your facilities. And we provide a whole variety of ways for you to get that information into ArcGIS and then quickly get started with the solution. Now, before I jump out and show you where you can find the solution, I just want to talk a little bit about the surveys that we've developed for individual and team check-ins, because this is a really interesting and new space for us in ArcGIS. And ultimately what we found is that these surveys are really designed to help you understand the capacity and health of your workforce. And they can be allocated to employees or team leads. You have the flexibility to deploy these capabilities at either level. Either have everyone in your organization check in on a regular basis, or have your team leadership do that on behalf of everyone on their team. And we've tried to provide some pre-configured questions that really help you get started with that personnel status dashboard and drive the metrics that are responsible for workforce capacity. But we know that you'll want to review those questions closely and really think about the organizational policies and any applicable laws that apply to your organization. And so I just want to encourage you to do that. The other thing I want to encourage you to do is make sure that you secure this information. These surveys are really designed for named users within your organization. So you're going to want to take great care to ensure that you secure the surveys within your ArcGIS Online organization and the content that's generated from that. And so you'll see when Chris goes through the surveys, we've provided a set of really unique questions that you can use as a starting point, and we expect that you'll configure them to meet needs in your organization. So before I turn it over to Chris to get started with the demos, I just want to show you how you can locate the solutions. So for those that aren't familiar with our solution site, if you go to solutions.arcgis.com, this is really your destination for all of our solution offerings. And today, I'm just going to go in, and search for coronavirus. And let's go ahead and hit go. And it's going to return 2 offerings here, and you'll see the business continuity solution is right here on the search list. So right here is the first thing, is the coronavirus business continuity solution we're going to be talking about today. And you can drill in real quickly and see more detailed information about this solution offering. Today we're going to show you all of the information products that are included, but real quickly you can see the software that's used in the solution offering, all of the information products you'll get when you deploy it in your ArcGIS organization, and ultimately as we continue to evolve the solution offerings based on the feedback we get, you'll see release notes that are available. The documentation here on the solution site will then quickly walk you through how you can use an add-in for ArcGIS Pro called the ArcGIS Solutions Deployment Tool to deploy the solution in your organization. And it's a very simple way to do that. And then ultimately some additional documentation that you can use to configure this facility status report that Walt will show you today, and even the business continuity surveys that we just spoke about a minute ago. And then finally, all the workflows that we're going to show you today are documented here on the site as well too. So if you want to deploy the solution in your organization to begin to work through the common workflows we're going to show you today, you can do that with these workflow topics as well. So once you download and install the solutions deployment tool and load it into your ArcGIS Pro project, you can go to the Share tab and turn the deployment tool on. And ultimately what it'll do is present a series of tasks that'll walk you through how to deploy the solution in your ArcGIS organization. The first thing you'll want to do is sign into the organization you want to create the content in. And then ultimately you can go in and now it'll load up all of the solutions that are available for you. And I can just, much like I did on the solution site, I'm going to search for COVID-19. And here I'll just only show, you'll see that all of the solutions that are available for me. So here's the business continuity solution we're going to talk about today. You can select a folder in your output and click deploy. And ultimately what this will do is create all of the maps and applications we're going to show you today. It'll create all of the surveys and ultimately all of the underlying layers you'll use to organize that content. So what I'd like to do now with that overview in mind is turn it over to Chris and let him go ahead and get started by showing you the first set of capabilities we delivered in business continuity. Chris, why don't you take it from here? We can see your screen.
Sorry, I muted myself. Sorry.
There you go.
So thanks, Scott.
Yep.
So I want to talk today with focusing on the collection of apps regarding how can I understand where my employees are and are they safe? So this is understanding about our operational capacity, and then being able to communicate that status to leadership, to HR, et cetera. So the first component I'm going to show is the individual check-in survey. And this allows personnel to update their work status, their work location, and provide any wellness information. So as an individual, I would, given the organization's policy, maybe check in the morning, check in at a given frequency that the organization decides. But I'm going to indicate my work status. And as I answer questions, it's going to provide me with additional questions to understand the current working situation. So I am working today. The next question is it's going to ask it where I'm working. This could be my normal work location. I'm in the office. If I if I work from home regularly, that would be my normal work location. Especially now, many people are temporarily working from home, so that's another option. If I'm indicate that I'm working off-site or in a other location, it's going to prompt me to provide my location, so I have more insight. We know where our employees' normal work locations are, and if they're temporarily working from home, most organizations know their home address, so we would know those two things. But if they happen to be off-site, we might want to capture that. So I'm in Ann Arbor, Michigan, so I'll just place that there. The next question is asking whether I'm working with anyone today. So I'll indicate yes. And then the follow-up question is we're trying to gauge more information about who I might be working in close proximity to. So if there were any concerns related to individuals or a particular office or location that I was working with, and somebody did start to demonstrate or come down with symptoms, we would have a log of all the individuals that that person may have encountered on that day. So again, this is, are you working with anyone today, is an optional question, but if I do indicate yes, then we're requesting a list of the individuals they're working with. Next, we're going to ask some optional health-related questions. And again, this is just a way for an organization to, if the individual is willing to provide this information, indicate if they're currently experiencing any COVID-19 symptoms. And if I am feeling or experiencing any of these symptoms, I can select the ones that apply. We're going to provide a note at the bottom to encourage them to contact their local healthcare provider or read some of the guidelines provided by the World Health Organization on how to best protect themselves and take care of themselves if they are experiencing those symptoms. We also are optionally asking if anyone else in their household or anybody in their household has experienced any symptoms. So I'll say no to this. Finally, we're offering the employee an opportunity to ask any additional questions they may have, especially in this time. It's important that we make ourselves available to answer any questions or concerns they may have, or any requests for assistance that they might have to help them keep them safe and address any issues that they might be encountering. So at the bottom, we're asking for any additional information that they might request from HR or from leadership in the organization. So I'm going to submit this. So that was the individual check-in. I can do that daily and just provide my current work status as well as any information about my wellness. Additionally or optionally, some organizations might find it more efficient to have managers, supervisors, or team leads to check in on behalf of their team members. So rather than every individual in the organization checking in, this could just be given to leadership to provide aggregate counts for their team members. So in this case, it's similar information we're asking for, but we're asking for counts. So in the team check-in form, if I was a manager, I would indicate how many of my staff are currently working in their normal work location, potentially the office, how many are temporarily working from home, how many are off-site or at another location, how many are absent either on vacation or sick. We're also asking if any of them are experiencing any COVID-19 symptoms, as well as members of their household. And again, we're offering the opportunity for the individual to provide additional details about any questions they have or requests for assistance. So I could submit this as well. I think the key thing I want to make clear about these two paths for the survey is they're both writing to the same underlying layer, the same service. So you can use them both. You can use one or the other, but all the information is going to funnel into the same dashboard. So that gives you a lot of flexibility in how you deliver this and which approach you take inside your organization. So now I'm going to go into the personnel status dashboard. So this dashboard displays an overview of the key metrics. So it gives management a quick overview of the number of team members that are working in various situations. So their normal working location, temporarily from home, are working offsite, or who are absent, either sick or vacation or not working today. It also gives me a high level of how many of my staff have reported symptoms or have reported that they're in a household with family members who are experiencing COVID-19 symptoms. So this snapshot here reflects the last check-in for any individual or team members or team leads at that time. So if I've asked people to check in daily, then there'll be daily numbers. But if someone, say, checked in a couple days ago and hasn't updated their status, this dashboard will still reflect the last known status that they reported. So this reflects what we last knew about our team. And then on the right-hand side here, we have a list of those check-ins. So you can see my check-in here just came in. So let me refresh that. So it's indicating the time I checked in, my team, my assigned location. I can also see my other individual team members. So I can see, for example, if I click on any of the individuals, this one was a particular team check-in. So they checked in on behalf of their team, and they have the numbers indicating how many are working in the office, working from home, working from offsite. So for me, it says my assigned location is a home office. I actually work from home normally, so that is my normal working location. But you can see I indicated that I was working off-site, so my working status is actually off-site. I indicated that I wasn't going to be working with the individuals. I did say that I had symptoms, and it lists my symptoms here. My household has no symptoms, and if I had requested any additional information, I would see that listed here as well. On the history tab for any of these indicators, we can see the history of check-ins over time. So I can see some of the trends in how many staff are working in their normal location or working from home, and it's all driven by the check-ins that people are doing over time. I can also filter on the left-hand side for particular aspects. So let's say I'm looking for everybody in our Baton Rouge office. I can select that office. I can see the 3 individuals who've checked in. These are team leads, so they're indicating the totals for their teams in those locations. I can also filter by particular teams. I can filter down for particular individuals, so I can find myself in this list. Oops. I have to check that out. It should filter it down for just me, but I can select individuals and see when they checked in. I can filter by a date range, so I can see the check-ins over a particular time range, or by work status, or by those who have symptoms or have indicated they're working with others. Essentially, all the information that I entered, I can filter down in this dashboard. I can also see all of the check-ins over time. So you can see I checked in a couple times today, I checked in a couple hours ago, and then I checked in recently. This may happen, and especially if the work situation changes throughout the day, you might want to ask the individual or the team lead to check in or provide an updated status of where they are, so we have that information. And then for our offsite staff, if anybody has indicated they're working offsite, we're going to display that in the list, and I can select that individual, and it will zoom me in to their working location so that I can see them on a map. So that's an overview of the personnel status dashboard and how I can use the check-ins to provide an instant look at the current workforce capacity and where my staff are. Some important data that you'll have to be aware of to support this dashboard is we have a feature layer that has 2 sub-layers. We have our check-ins, so those are the individual check-ins that are coming in through the individual survey or the team survey. And then we have a personnel information table. So if we look at that table, this is the key one that you'll have to populate with information. This is where you're going to load the information about your users, the people who are going to be filling out the surveys, into this Excel form. And this is often going to be your HR or human resources information. We provide a basic schema. So here you're providing the name of the employee, the team that they are on, and their assigned office location. And then we're providing their named user. So this is the user that they use to log into ArcGIS. And the way that this brings things together is when I log into either of the surveys, the check-in or team check-in, the individual check-in or team check-in, I'm going to use my named user, and editor tracking is going to capture who submitted that record. So then we're going to join the check-in based on that editor tracking named user to this personnel information so that we have all the details about the individual that we can show in the dashboard. So to get started, you'll have to load your users into this table. We provide a CSV with the solution that gives you a nice starting point of the schema, so you can download that. You can populate it through Excel, and then you can use the tools in the platform, either through online or pro, to append that CSV into this layer to populate all your users. And then you just have to check in using the surveys, and your information will start to show up in the dashboard. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Walt, who's going to talk about our facility status solutions.
Hey, great, Chris. Appreciate that. I'm going to share my screen with you and then share a little bit about what we can do with some of the facility stuff. So as Chris was mentioning, he's basically giving you an ability to understand the workforce capacity. We're switching gears here a little bit. This portion of the solution is designed to help you understand the operational status of your facilities. So there's two main functions that this part of the solution provides for you. One is the reporting of your facilities, and the second part is monitoring or managing those facilities. So the first part here is called this facility status reporter. Allows a facility manager or an office manager for a corporation, a utility, or a government agency to be able to provide updates on a regular status of the facility back to their head office. So if I am a facility manager, and if I'm one in Dallas, I can just come over here and just type in Dallas, and it gives me the name of that organization, or I mean that facility. Makes a list there for me, gives me information about that, who's the contact information, and then it allows me to just be able to click on Submit Status Report. If I click on that status report, it brings me into a survey, much like you saw with Chris's surveys that he showed to you earlier. You notice that we've connected in the reporter there to the survey the location. In this case, the name of the facility is Dallas, so it gets picked off of a list, very similar to what he's showing you earlier. And that allows me as the facility manager to give an update on my status of this particular facility, whether it's open, closed, or if it's impacted. So I went ahead and just filled this out so you can see what it would look like. But if I have an impacted facility, I might have maybe just 2 people working in the office and 40 people working remotely right now, and 1 person absent. I can also indicate some things like whether the operating on essential staff only, maybe just the IT staff or something, and whether or not anybody is required to stay overnight. This might be helpful for a utility or a critical care facility or something. I also can provide some information on the security of the facility, whether or not the entrance is staffed. Do I have security out there? Whether the building is secured, like it's locked down or got a gate around it or something. And then also whether it's access restricted, such as a card reader electronic access or something. And then the last thing down here is whether staff are allowed or not. So if we don't want anybody coming into the office, we can click no here and we can tell them whether or not visitors are allowed, and then provide any additional detail. So that's kind of the overview of the facility stuff. Now about the operations, we want to indicate whether or not we're under normal working hours, reduced hours, or not. In this case here, I've just clicked on reduce, so you can see that when I do that, it brings me up with this question whether I can specify what my new hours are going to be for the time being. It also allows me to specify whether or not this facility is scheduled to close. So if I click on yes, then it brings up a date here, allows me to fill in a date and a time when I'm going to plan on closing this particular facility. So it's interesting. Also, you should know that if I had clicked on closed in up here, then it would give me the option to indicate when this facility is going to be reopened. So I can come down here and specify a date for that as well. And this becomes important when the government restrictions are lifted and so on, and offices starting to becoming back open again. You want to kind of monitor that and see how many people are coming back into the office and when. And then you can indicate here where there's any kind of government restrictions, provide that detail down in here, and then submit that. So that's kind of an overview of the facility reporting. As far as the monitoring of those facilities, this dashboard can help if you're an operations manager that's kind of want to monitor the entire organization, your entire company, and see how all the facilities are operating. This is a good dashboard for you to be able to use. First, you can see the overall reports, how many people, how many facilities have been reported, how many are expected to close or scheduled to close or scheduled to reopen. And this is going to get updated as each facility manager submits their status reports. This aggregation is going to get updated on a dashboard. It also gives me some overview of the occupancy of each one of those facilities, how many of the facilities have, how many people are in the office are still working remotely or absent. If I wanted to see a little bit about a particular facility, I can open up the selection panel here and just pin it so I can see the results next to it as I select it off. I wanted to select down Dallas, for example, and see how they're doing, what's happening in that office. Recently, I could select on any one of the facility names. I can also select out by the country. So if we have facilities in different countries, we can select on Canada, for example, and get a list of the facilities that are open there. We can also select down in regions if we have them organized by regions or down to a smaller area like a state, maybe a county, or some other geographic area that you might have. So all this information is being tracked on the facility itself. That's a feature layer. That's just a point feature that has that information on it. Much like what Chris was just talking about, you can pre-populate that from a CSV file or other means. But we also have the information that's coming in on a regular basis. It could be daily or weekly from the status reports. So I can select out all the status reports within the last 7 days, 30 days, or in between specific dates if I want to. And I can also specify whether I want to see those where there's no staff allowed currently. So I want to see how many of my facilities are completely closed and no staff can get in, or how many I have open with just essential staff. So it gives me a way to be able to select out and restrict out those kinds of things, the selection, to see how the operational status is going. So if I just close my selection window again, I can then click down here to history, which gives me a good overview of trends that are going on with my facilities. So at the top, we can see that in blue here, those are the facilities, the number of facilities that have been impacted. Red indicates that they are closed, and the green indicates that they're opened or scheduled to be opened. So we can see this overall trend over time as the facility managers submit their information. And you can see here from our little sample data set that we've been doing it for a few days. Down here, I can also get the overall trends of occupancy in each one of these offices. So I can see how many people are in the office here. Like in this London case here, we had started off on the 28th with 3, and right away moved up to 23 and leveling off a little bit at 20. So you can see these general trends of staff in the office or staff that's working remotely. We want to see, has that gone up or down, or the absent staffs like we see here in Baton Rouge is back down to only 10 people that are absent. So it gives us that idea of trends. How are we doing overall? The last thing on here is the locations. We want to see them again. We see a dispersion of our facilities around the world. We can see that the ones that are in blue are those that are impacted. The red are closed and the green are open. So we can see them down here. We have to get an idea again of the staffing or the occupancy in each one of those offices. And we can get into individual details. So we can see when they last reported over here on the list. And if I want to, I could click on any one of these and get a little bit more detail. So it zooms me into that particular office, gives me that information. If I needed to, I can contact that facility manager, office manager, and get some more information from them. It gives me the details on each individual office, the staffing, facility, how they're operating, what their hours are, and so on, and that about any government's restrictions in that particular area. If I have not gotten a report for a number of days and I'm interested, I could click on the button here and it would allow me to contact the facility manager. I can send a status report or ask them to send a status report and give me an update if they haven't recently. The other thing you can do from here is submit another status report. So if I know that that particular facility manager is out, maybe they've sent me a text or an email or whatever and told me what their status is, but they can't get to the survey at the point in time, I could fill it out for them, going through the same process as we did before, and then submit that and update that particular facility for them. So that kind of gives you an idea of the kind of things you can do to maintain or to monitor, I should say, your facility status, the operations on a global scale, or as big as your area might be. It might be just one county, but a way for you to kind of keep track of things that's going on around your organization. So that's kind of an overview of it. I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. I'm going to turn it over to you, Jer, so you can kind of give us an update on how they can communicate that status out to their stakeholders.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you, Walt. Okay. So I'd like to take some time to discuss a hub initiative that was released with the solution and available for you today. Included in this is a mobile responsive site to share the status of the facilities you just saw with your constituents or customers. It also includes a page that will be an internal destination to share information to your employees. So let's first take a look at kind of the end result, a hub site that you can engage with your constituents or customers. We know there's so much information changing around the subject of the coronavirus, and organizations need to have a dedicated page of information. So what we're looking at now is a configurable page that can allow you to place your own content in. There's a video a placeholder. Now you can update this and put your own video in here if you like. As I start to scroll down, I see other relevant information you might want to pass along to your customers. And as I scroll down a little bit further, what I see is a dynamic map of those facility locations. So here what we're doing is we're presenting to the public information as it's updated. So as Walt was updating or playing the role of a facility manager and updating the status, this map is being dynamically updated. So you're passing along that information to your constituents or customers in this case. Behind the scenes, when you deploy the solution, there's a series of views that are set up. So what's being displayed is just a stripped down version of a subset of attributes and just read-only information to share the same information that you are managing internally. And then further frequently asked questions you might want to pass along to the public. So that's the major component of the hub initiative is an external page. In addition, I'm going to switch over and I'm going to look at an internal site. So this is not public facing, but for you to really relay information along to your employees. So again, a placeholder you see for a video. This might be a video from your CEO that you just want to pass along relevant information. Really educating your employees what they can do to stop the spread and be safe themselves. But how do they find the information that you saw earlier? So placeholders for you to have the individual employee check-in. The form where employees can check in every day can be on this page here in an easy to find place. Other textual information for other internal updates. And then if I'm a facility manager, how do I find that facility reporter application to find my facility to go and report status on any given facility so I can find my correct survey. So that's an internal page for us to really share that information internally. So how do I get started with the Hub initiative? Well, this is all available to ArcGIS customers. And if I go to my ArcGIS Online site, so I'll sign into my ArcGIS Online site. And at the top of the page, I will click the app launcher, and I will go ahead and choose Hub. And from this from the Hub site, what I get is the ability to go ahead and create a brand new site. So if I haven't created sites before, this is the general process. I'll click New.
I can create a brand new site, or I can browse templates. And the what we're looking at, the initiative is really a template that we're providing you. So you'll see something that looks like this. Now you'll see a couple that are listed for coronavirus. The coronavirus response is one that we released a few weeks ago that really aligns with the prior solution to report things like cases and other impacted facilities such as school closures. This one, the coronavirus business continuity initiative, is what we're looking at today. So I can just go ahead and click activate solution, type in a name. I've already done this, and then click go. And when I do that, what it's going to do is it's going to fire up the initiative for me, and it's going to get everything ready for me so I can start editing it. Oops, let me go over to another page here. So what I'm going to get is a site that looks like this, where I can start going into edit mode and start making changes to the page. So behind the scenes, it's going to create a group inside my ArcGIS Online to help me kind of manage all of this content and create these pages for me. Now what I'm in design mode, I'm going to see a couple things. And what I want to point folks to first is right up here in the upper left. When I'm in design mode, I see that I get a couple pages. One page is this, how to use this template. Really, this is just a series of instructions and guidelines for updating the site. Everything's configurable, so if you want to put your own videos, text, or maps in, really nice instructions that the Hub team has designed to how to update the site and maintain it. So I'd recommend that you take some time and you look at the page information there. In addition, what I get is another page. So this page is an internal site. So here's where I can come in and I can start making changes. If I want to go in and update the video, so we give kind of a stock video, but if you want to update your own video to relay onto your employees, you can do that here as well. Everything else on the site is fully configurable. So if you haven't used the Hub page before, it's pretty easy. What you see, what you get, type display for updating the Hub page and updating text. If I scroll down, I have placeholders for the individual check-ins. So if I want to, I can just come in and really would just put in a link to where my survey is, and that's how I'm going to update the appropriate survey. Lastly, to go back, I want to go into the overall initiative site here. So the main page that's public facing. Same idea here. I can update everything that I see that I want to relay onto my constituents and customers. If I scroll down here, there's a placeholder for the map. And what you'll need to do here is just set up the configuration, and you'll want to edit, and it's going to ask you for your status map. So one of the things that we provide with the deployment is the status map. And as the facilities get updated, they automatically appear with their status of open, impacted, or closed on this site. And then the last thing you might want to do is update these metrics for pointing to the appropriate data. So again, same thing, I can highlight any given metric. I've already pre-configured this, but what you would do is you would just browse to one of the layers that you get with this is called the public facilities, which I've already pointed at here. And we're going to be filtering that out by status. We basically just have 3 different indicators of the status that then we're relaying on to the public. So as that data is updated, your constituents will automatically see it live. So we know information around the subject is flowing fast, and having to come up with web designs on the fly is a hurdle for many. And also being able to take all this important information, such as these surveys and maps and dashboards, and relaying them in an engaging way can be challenging. So the Hub initiative really helps you deliver all this content and the solution that we saw today in a quick and easy to digest format. So with that, I'll go ahead and stop sharing and turn it back over to Scott.
Thanks a lot, Jared. And Matt, I saw there were several questions kind of coming in. So let's just wrap up with a few final thoughts, and then we can take the questions. So thank you very much, you guys. That was a great overview of all of the information products that are available in the coronavirus business continuity solution. And I guess I just want to just kind of wrap up with, what do you get and how do you take advantage of it? So there's really two paths for individuals. If you're an existing ArcGIS user, you can just deploy the solution into your ArcGIS organization, leverage the hub template that Jeremiah showed you a few seconds ago, and ultimately, if you need help, use Esri technical support to help you do that. If you need additional kind of implementation and enablement activities, we do have a services offering that can help you implement the solution and configure it to meet your needs. And I know there were many questions about the check-ins, the individual check-ins and the team check-ins, and do you need users for that? The answer is yes, you do need named users for that. And because of that, we have set up some really simple ways for you to buy additional user packs at a greatly discounted rate, so you can really enhance the number of users available in your ArcGIS Online subscription very simply with that. If you're a new user and you haven't used ArcGIS before and don't have ArcGIS available, you can just, we have an offering for you that really takes everything that you need, bundles it up, and makes it available for you. So it provides you that ArcGIS Online organization with 100 editors to complete those surveys that we talked about and use the other information products. You get the solution and all the information products we showed you in the hub template, and then ultimately the implementation and enablement activities along with the support. And then if you need to go beyond those 100 users, you can do that with the business continuity user pack we talked about. So this offering really scales for organizations of all sizes. And with the business continuity solution and even some of the work we've done to help government agencies in the response phase, we're just continuing to evolve the offerings we have based on the feedback we get from the community. So what you'll see is we have a whole set of enhancements planned for both our coronavirus response and our coronavirus business continuity solutions coming in the future. Couple things around business continuity, and I saw there was a question about it earlier. We are planning support for ArcGIS Enterprise in the coming weeks. Right now, it is only supported in ArcGIS Online, but we will support ArcGIS Enterprise in the future. We're also thinking about some new response capabilities around meal sites and school lunch programs and other types of food distribution services. And we're also working on some things that just make the deployment easier for you. And provide some additional enablement materials, much like we did today with the meetup. And the most important thing to us is, your continued feedback really drives and guides what we include in the solution offering. So I would encourage you, as you begin to deploy it in your organization, the feedback you provide is really valuable to us. And I would encourage you to share that with us because it will ultimately help us guide what we build. Before we take some questions, I do want to leave you with a few resources that are available. I showed you today how you could get and access the business continuity real quickly by going to solutions.arcgis.com. If you're interested, if you are not currently an ArcGIS user and you're interested in the offering we talked about, there is a destination for that. And Matt, we can share these links also on the meetup site and maybe even on the video when we post it. And then finally, all of the resources that Esri has been accumulating in response to the COVID pandemic, we are making available on a GIS hub, and that's coronavirus-resources.esri.com. So with that, thank you very much for your time today. We did run a few minutes over. I apologize for that. If you would not mind, we would like to hear your feedback on the meetup overall. And if you do have any suggestions for future meetups, we'd like to hear that. So with that, Matt, I think we've got some time, for a few questions that may have come in.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think a lot of them we were able to get answered live as they came through. There was kind of a continued theme of a question when it came to the personnel check-in. So that concept of what information, so maybe it's just something we reiterate through that is, so I'm an employee, I submit my survey, and then how's it showing kind of the most accurate or the most current information coming in. And there's also a question about like if I checked in and then my manager checked me in as well, what will be shown in the dashboard, how is that managed, like that kind of information I think came up quite a bit. So maybe you could
Yeah.
reiterate it.
So a couple things, maybe let's just really drive a sharp point on that. The check-ins are designed for named users in your organization. You're not going to make those surveys, publicly available. There is information obviously about an individual, your individual employees, and the survey itself is driven from the named user used to sign in, the content and everything. So that's one key point. The other point is, kind of how do I use the team check-ins versus the individual check-ins? And what we believe will happen, and what we heard from many organizations is, you'll probably pick one or two methods. You'll either, and you can mix those methods throughout your organization, but you won't want to have like individuals on a team submitting the individual check-in and the team lead for that same team submitting the team, because you will get double counts. So you really need to be thoughtful. You have options, and you can align kind of the surveys around your organizational structure. And that's really why we designed both approaches.
And there's several questions that came in about kind of localization of the solutions.
Sure. Yeah. So all of the solutions we have are using core technology. So the applications and the maps will be localized natively, but there will be work required on the underlying layers, and also maybe the pop-up configurations to truly localize the rest of the content in the solution. But it's absolutely possible.
And then there was an interesting question came in. So someone's working with the housing department. They're getting a large number of calls each day. So their staff's been kind of reduced to several members. The idea of a solution being allowed to show the call volume so they can kind of help contrast with the department capacity and kind of moving into that capacity planning as they move forward in this epidemic.
Yeah, that's interesting. We'd have to probably talk a little bit more about how you'd like to tabulate that. Is it just recording how many calls they're taking? Yeah, I mean, it could be an interesting thing to think about if you wanted to maybe adapt the team check-in. Potentially, we'd have to learn more about the workflow and kind of what you're trying to capture there.
And there's some questions about connecting with other types of health-related information. So in hospitals, or a particular model like the patients within a hospital system for a check-in in this type of a scenario.
Okay. Yeah, we hadn't thought about it that way. So it'd be good to learn more about that and kind of what you're thinking. Maybe you could just kind of reach out to us afterwards, and yeah, it'd be interesting to talk more about that.
And I see, so that was from Colleen. Colleen, my information's associated with the webinar, and you'll also on our meetup site. So if you want to just email us through that, we can follow up with you more. Let's see. I know we're running over a bit. It looks like there was a question about any idea of the inclusion of maybe tracker to get some locations of where people are.
We've thought about it as kind of a natural extension of the individual check-in, and I think it's absolutely doable, because obviously in states where they've required stay-at-home orders, obviously you now have a very large mobile workforce and a very large remote workforce, and so being able to use tracker to have more finite kind of access to the location of field workers that are still essential is certainly something that's absolutely possible, and we're starting to dig into that now as an extension of that check-in for sure. That's absolutely, you could do it now and complement the solution as it is. And it'd be kind of good to hear what you're thinking if someone does have some ideas about that.
And it looks like, I mean, there's some other questions that they kind of get more into the configuration. So I guess recommend people take a look at our solution documentation with that. And that kind of goes back into if there's other questions. I know we're kind of running over here. So definitely reach out to our team, especially when it comes to kind of wiring things up or other ideas. I think some people were talking about they already have existing feature layers and things they may have configured before the solution was released. And so like how to port some things over. So definitely reach out to Esri as a whole and to help you get wired up essentially. These are all fully supported. So that'd be my comment on that.
Yeah, I was just looking at to see if there's any other last ones. There was a couple questions about the facility data. Um, Certainly, yeah, the status map, I know that Jer showed on the site, that does look at facilities. Obviously, it's looking at, facilities that have an impacted or closed status. So that's the one thing for clarity, that's important to point out, is that status map on the hub site that Jeremiah pointed out is not meant to replace your, more traditional site or place locators that you have already on your websites. It's really meant to just highlight and bring attention to those facilities that are impacted from the pandemic. Any other questions, Matt, you think we should hit?
I think we've covered, I'm just kind of looking through a lot of them, we're in kind of buckets of similar questions. So yeah, I think we should be good for now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you do have any, very specific questions about your implementation, as Matt said, don't hesitate to reach out to us and we'll try to help you the best we can.
Hey, Scott. One of the questions was talking about the additional licenses. Is the best person to talk about that discount your account rep?
Absolutely. Yeah, I would work with your account rep. They actually are also the pack. The business continuity pack is also available through the Esri store. So if you go to esri.com and go to that store, you can see the information about that there as well. But I would definitely encourage you to contact your account rep for more details if you're interested in that.
And I'm going to go in and put a link right now into the chat for the Esri store. I know some people have already dropped off probably, but if you did want to check out the Esri store, I just sent that in the chat window as well. And I think we can, when we post this recording to YouTube, we'll put as many links as we've covered today into the description that'll kind of allow us within YouTube, just to have that further reference as well.
Yes, thank you very much, you guys, for spending time with us today. We really appreciate it, and we look forward to your feedback on the business continuity solution. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.